Hello everybody, I am Ben from Team Panic, and it's time to jump back into some robot combat stuff. And we are jumping back in at the deep end, looking at, it works, my dual spinner melty brain that definitely didn't live up to that name. Yeah, lots and lots of things went wrong with it, so we're going to try and condense this thing down, get all the problems out of it, and go ahead and do a version 2. So what are the main problems that we had with It Works? The first and probably biggest is to do with this, the Melty Brain's actual brain. This board somewhere in here, when it took a shot and took a bit of a jolt, it turned off. It just completely shut down. And I really still, to this point, don't even know why. We're going to experiment with this in a little bit. I have a feeling that it might be this voltage regulator chip right at the top up here, just because of the way the fault was happening. So we'll have a look at that in a quick minute. The other thing that happened was that once we had the Melty Brain debrained and it was just running on RC gear, it still wasn't working very well. It could drive forwards and backwards a little bit, but it could not turn on the spot all that well. And I believe the reason for this is that it's super, super long, and also these edge pieces, because they are connected in such a way, they're connected with dovetails, they're not a solid piece, which means that these flex up and down and have actually drooped a little bit, which means that the bolt underneath was actually what was touching the ground. So we had 4 points of contact. We had the two wheels in the middle and then the bolts at either edge, and these things produced a lot of drag force that the motors couldn't overcome. So there's a couple of things that we can do about that. First, we can shrink the whole unit down. The whole robot can get shrunk, because then, the force required to move these is going to be less, which will be good for our motors, which means we'll be able to actually get up to speed. And secondly, we can remove all of this dovetailing so that the whole chassis stays a little bit more rigid and, hopefully, fingers crossed, stops the weapons from actually touching the ground like that. We'll also probably put some standoffs in under here, some better ones, because I do have two little standoffs in here, but they probably actually needed to be further out, somewhere out here, and probably also made of HDPE so that they actually did the thing that I wanted them to do. Anyway, I think that's enough of that. We need to have a look at the brain board. So I had a whole big plan for the testing of this. I was going to plug a battery into it and I was going to drop it on the table and I was going to probe it and see what the problem was, but I think I've found it already. And this is just a continuity tester that I've got here that makes an annoying little sound when things are connected electrically. And if I look at the two pins of my voltage regulator, they're connected together, which means that 12 volts is going from the battery directly into the brain board, and it's not really rated to be able to handle that. So I'm not 100% sure what is going on with that, but I have a feeling that this chip, the brain chip being fed that full 12 volts is really, really not helping things out here. So something is definitely wrong with this voltage regulator, and I think my first trick is going to be to try and replace that little voltage regulator. So while I'm working on electrical gremlins in the background, because that type of thing could be very difficult to fix, it might be a case of just having to redo that whole brain board. Thankfully, all the code will still work in a new one, so it's just lots of parts and stuff to get done. Anyway, while I'm going to do that in the background, I thought we could have a look at the new chassis shape, because as I mentioned, this chassis is way too long and the dovetail jointing makes everything too flexible. This type of system would work probably quite well if all of it was done out of steel, like the dovetail, like weapon pieces, the joiner pieces, all of it was all steel and all locked together really solidly. It probably would work and be totally fine. But in this configuration in plastic, not so much. So we are going to do a HDPE chassis again, because I think this worked out quite well, but I haven't had a chance to get to the place that I can access the CNC, so I have just printed some pieces. This is going to be the new shape and the new base plate. Now, one of the things I did mention was getting this shrunk down, and as you can see, we are shrinking down quite a lot here. So these two holes at the edges are going to be where our weapons move into. And what that means though is we're going to have to lose the hole in the middle, because by moving the weapons in, they basically intersect with where all the electronics boxes and stuff were. So all of this is going to get compressed into the center where this actual hole is. So this hole, because I've got two pieces here that are completely identical and they stack on top of each other, which I'll show you in a second. This hole is for my battery insert and removal, but it also is a base plate where the battery is going to sit on the other side. So this is going to be a 2mm piece of HDPE down here that sits in these little recesses that I have that will hold everything and allow me to get into the batteries without having to take the whole robot in pieces every single time, which would be a bit of a nightmare. Yeah, so all the electronics are now going to sit down through the middle, which is kind of where they probably should be anyway. And these cutouts in the outside are for the motors. Now, if I grab this motor out of here, this thing will not fit in there, because the other thing that's happening is the wheels are shrinking because the overall height of the robot is shrinking as well. This thing is quite tall and had to have quite tall wheels to accommodate all of that. I'm shrinking the whole ordeal. So this here is one of the new motor mounts, and you'll see that we've actually lost quite a lot of height between these two pieces. And this is why I wanted to do some test prints. Yeah, so I've dry fit a wheel on here. This obviously needs some silicone around it like these guys have to actually have it to be its full size, but it's only really going to add an extra mil or so maybe. The big problem with this is there is not a lot of gap in here underneath the weapon affixing points, which is a problem because one of the things that we're trying to fix off this was these weapon bolts touching the ground. And yeah, with these tiny little wheels, we were going to have the weapon bolts touching the ground. Cool. So, testing out the belt, we have a problem. So if I spin the weapon motor, you can hear, I get a clicky noise. That's because, now I have no idea if I'm going to be able to show this on camera, it hits the standoff, which I thought I'd calculated out all my distances properly, so that didn't happen, but apparently I have cut that too fine. And I'm not sure how much I can actually do about that at the moment. Obviously, I could just cut these pieces as they are and then with a file or a sanding disc or something, cut some of that piece out. But I will have to be very careful because I wanted to mount up switches and things here, but I can't really do that if I'm going to be putting something in the path of the weapon. All right, we're on prototype number 3 now, but this one is actually looking better. So I've got the old wheels back on, got rid of the short wheels because now I've actually got space to have weapon bolts sitting in underneath everything, which is really good. That's what I need. I also realized too that in the last version, the actual weapon diameter was wrong. I'd spec'd this weapon diameter as 100 millimeters, it's 110 millimeters, which is why I was getting the rubbing on the wall. So now I can actually thread this all in and it actually fits and works and doesn't break anything, which is quite nice. So if we do that, you can see, why am I hitting? I'm hitting the actual weapon motor, which is not in there properly right now, which is why that's a problem. So if we remove that really quick, like this, you'll see weapon spins totally correctly now, which is what I wanted to see last time. I've also done some extra stuff here. I've put a base plate in. This is 2mm HDPE. So the top and the bottom are exactly the same. So I've got a space here for another piece of 2mm HDPE. That's going to be my lid, effectively. And we should be able to drop the battery in through the middle here and Velcro it into the bottom to get that all to work. I've also got my power link sorted, and I've got space over this side for the LED to come out so that I can track heading and all of that kind of stuff. I should be able to very soon actually go and get all of this stuff cut in HDPE. So things are looking good here. I have the test chassis done with electronics inside of it, which is good. I did do a very, very quick drive test of this. It works okay. I slammed it into a wall and it didn't turn off, which is a very, very good start. But I've now obviously gone and done the HDPE pieces. So the next thing is going to be to transfer all of this into here. The final thing I need to consider though is these guys. The weapon motors, at the moment actually there's nothing stopping the wiring. And I can't really show this on camera, but there's nothing stopping the wiring from touching those. So I actually need to put some little standoffs in here to stop the wiring jumping into the weapon motors and getting destroyed, because that's a really bad idea. Also, I need to cut down the wiring a little bit because this has still got a giant piece of cable in here that was designed for the old version and looping around the outside of the robot. So a lot of this wiring can get cut down. But all of that we'll do in a little bit. Right now, I want to get the HDPE chassis up and running. One of the things I actually need to do with that as well is get all of the parts mounted up. I've also broken one of these already. So these are my new standoffs, which go in and hold everything up. And I've managed to break one in a dry fit. So that's not a great sign, but I think I should be okay. There's a little bit of a stub there, so that should be fine. And realistically, once I've got 3 points of contact, it should be okay to hold everything together. HDPE chassis is coming along right now. I've got some motors in place and I've got these uprights in place, but here is a better view of the problem. So this section here is where the battery and all the electronics and stuff sit, and this right here is a brushless motor that's going to be spinning at a whole lot of speed. And as you can see, there is nothing stopping this like wiring coming in and touching this, which is bad, very, very bad. So I think I'm going to get my old friend 2mm HDPE and I'm just going to put a little cover, a little shield across here. This brushless motor won't actually be here. It will be mounted to the lid, the other plate that's going to be sitting up here. So I can probably just put in a shield wall that then lets these wires stick out over the top of that, and it should still all be okay. So there we go, I have it all packed. Sans weapons at the moment, and weapon ESCs. That could be a little bit problematic because there's a little bit of cable in this, and there's really, really not a lot of space left in the top of this thing. The lid can bulge out a bit, that is okay, because the wheels are actually quite a lot taller this time around. But yeah, I'm not really all that happy about it. I don't want that to happen, but I guess that's the way it's going to go. I think next time we might need a little bit of extra height in this thing. I also should probably just have a quick look at where we're sitting on weight, because I need to know what weapons I can put on. I have a feeling I've gone down in weight. I've shrunk the whole chassis a lot, and the actual chassis itself is a lot lighter now. Oh wow, we're at 700 grams. Yeah, we're easily underweight, even if we add on big weapons and stuff. Yeah, we are easily. That's 800 grams there. That's another weapon there. It's only 900 grams. I do still have some more bolts and stuff to put in, but I think we're gonna make weight, no problem. Anyway, I'm gonna try and get this thing bolted together without weapon bars. I do need to put some stabilizing bolts in it before we do anything else. But then I'm gonna see if this thing actually melties, because that, of course, is the big trick here. It spins up! Yes! So, I'm pretty happy with that. I mean, the heading light didn't work particularly well, and there's two problems with that. One, where the heading light is mounted right now is not where it's going to be mounted in the final design. I need to redo some wiring to get that mounted properly so it's more visible. But also, the actual wheels are wider on this bot than they were on the old chassis, which means it's going to spin faster, technically, I think. No, sorry, it's going to spin a little bit slower, but it's going to have more torque in doing that. So it's going to be able to get up to speed quicker, which is actually a good thing. It's very much what we want. Also, as you can tell, I've got a lot more work to do in terms of like mounting weapons and stuff. But just as a bit of a like quick thing, let's see if I can just jam this weapon in here. There we go. So that's kind of what it's going to look like or end up looking like, just with weapons out both sides rather than out one side. Yeah, I definitely need to add some skids as well, because even in that test, the bottom HDPE bits were hitting the ground from time to time, just as it like rocked up and down and back and forth a little bit, because I don't think I've got the balance perfect yet, but I'll get there. So anyway, I've got a lot more work to do, but this is all the time I have to film for this week. So I'm gonna have to finish this off camera and you guys will see it when it goes into the arena, hopefully. Now, last time, I'm not sure if I've mentioned this in this video yet or not, but last time the melty was called It Works because I thought it did, but realistically that was just tempting fate. So this time it's called It Doesn't Work at All. Hopefully, we anti-jinx ourselves this time and see how we go. Anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed that one and I will see you in the next video.